Hello, Durud and Shalom. Hi, guys. Okay, how's my audio? Let me know in the chat so we could get started. Let's go into our discussion group and then join the group call. Oh, okay. So I see 9 people are already on. How's my audio? Let me just join right away and see if.
Be part of replacing that voting block.
Hello,
Oh, hi. Hey, Armin.
guys. Hi. How are you guys? Okay, so what were you talking about, Monkey? Hi, guys.
Well, there is a theory or kind of like very factually proven method where the illegal immigrants are being placed in places where black people had turned the vote purple or red. And people that are willing to cheat to get in might be willing to cheat on the vote. And this would be like disenfranchising black people that had turned to Trump, Latinos who are citizens who had turned to Trump. And that's the real disenfranchisement. And, there's things like these incentives, like the Supreme Court wanting to give illegal immigrants their children's status if they're born here. That's an incentive for people to come. I don't know that it's that many that are born every year to be like a huge problem, but it does serve as an incentive to send a lot of people here.
Okay, interesting. We should talk about that more as we get closer to midterms and we talk about more about U.S. politics. Are you guys does anybody know here that right now the Americans are in Doha and they're having talks? The Islamic Republic is saying there's no direct talks, but there are talks. Like, I don't know. Anybody following that? Anybody has any opinions about that? Because this is what, when it comes to Iran, this is what everybody's talking about right now. Let me actually give you some of their most recent updates, so we're all on the same page. So Baghai, which is the spokesperson of the foreign ministry of the Islamic Republic, he came out and says talks in Doha will focus primarily on the release of Iran's frozen funds and a ceasefire in Lebanon. Iranian foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said on Tuesday. Baghai said Iran had no plans to hold talks with the United States in the coming days, adding that an expert delegation led by Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Gharibabadi was being sent to Doha to follow up on the implementation of a memorandum of understanding with Qatar as the counterpart. He said the war in Lebanon must end before negotiations can begin, and the United States was obligated under the bilateral memorandum of understanding to compel Israel to withdraw from Lebanon. All right, so it's interesting because the United States is saying that the Islamic Republic asked the United States to come and have a meeting in Doha. The Islamic Republic is saying that we're not meeting with the Americans at all. We're going to Doha to speak to the Qataris, and it's just a coincidence that the Americans are coming to Doha at the same time, apparently, which nobody is buying. So just at the same time that the Islamic Republic is going to Doha to talk to Qataris regarding fund release and Lebanon, that's the same time that the Americans are going to Qatar, and the Americans are saying that, yeah, we're going to go there to meet with the Islamic Republic, and they're lying. That is the claim here. Oh, Richard, I see Richard put it two in the chat. Richard, go ahead.
Wasn't sure if we were doing the two thing yet, but yeah, I just wanted to say I think those comments make a lot more sense when you think about it in terms of who the intended audiences are, respectively. Because basically the regime is painting one picture for their supporters, and they're basically begging and pleading Trump and the American administration to please negotiate. To really, it's more about the release of the money than anything else, because they're basically in a de facto blockade situation if they can't liquefy their oil assets, and they don't have any leverage, unfortunately, other than trying to close the strait again, attacking the ships. So I think they're just trying to project strength. And fundamentally they're in a weak position.
Yeah, so the claim that they're not meeting with the Americans is only for an internal audience. That's your understanding as well? That's my understanding.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We got a couple of other updates from the Islamic Republic as well. Ghalibaf came out and said something. Ghalibaf is saying that Iran talks aim to implement MOU commitments. So Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf said current meetings held by Iran were aimed at fulfilling commitments under the Memorandum of Understanding, including talks on implementing Article 13. So, yeah, we are following up the process of talks to implement Article 13. What was Article 13? The announcement at the end of the war by
Article 13, isn't that NATO Article 13?
No. This is on the memorandum, the MOU between the Islamic Republic and the United States.
Oh, I'm
Article
sorry.
13 in the MOU, right? So I think that the 13 was about the blockade. We're following the process. Now, let me see. We are following the process of talks to implement Article 13 of the MOU in implementing the end of the war. Okay, no, that's Article 13 says that after the Memorandum of Understanding is signed and subject to the start of the continuation measures under paragraphs 1, 4, 5, and 10 and 11, the United States and Iran will begin negotiations on a final deal exclusively on the remaining paragraph. Okay. So that's that. And also the Islamic Republic came out and said that the European leaders, the EU leaders won't have honor of attending Khamenei's funeral. So we're getting closer and closer to Khamenei's funeral. So the Islamic Republic is saying that European countries will not have the honor of attending the funeral of Iran's slain Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei because they did not stand on the right side of history during the war, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismaili Baghai said on Tuesday. Wow. I'm sure they're very upset. So Al Arabiya is reporting that the Islamic Republic is going to get $3 billion in frozen assets soon, by the end of this week, while U.S. and Iranian delegations are so. Yeah, what do you guys think about if we do get some confirmation that the Islamic Republic is getting some frozen assets? Would you guys be? I have some thoughts that might not be very popular here, but what do you think?
All right. I think I should just go over the basic rules. Put a 1 for a topic. If you want to speak on the topic, put a 2 to respond to the topic. Everything you see will be seen. Everything you say will be seen on the internet. Everything you write on the chat board, the internal chat board. And to find the internal chat board, it's at the bottom right. Next to the respond on this, we have Richard.
I think the money's really a non-starter. If they actually get any money, let alone the $3 billion, it'll directly contradict what Trump said about the release of the funds being behavior-based at the sole discretion judgment of the U.S. They fired on 3 ships in the Strait. They haven't changed their behavior in terms of sponsoring proxies. They've bombed other countries. So any release of money, A, makes no sense, and B, would directly contradict what Trump has announced already.
I'll give you Monkey. Did you want to say something in defense of Trump, maybe? Because I have a Steelman for Trump, if you guys want it.
Well, we don't know where these funds are. Are these monies frozen is this money frozen in Qatar, or is this money frozen by the U.S.? If this is money that Qatar froze, it would make a different calculus, because then it would be like, okay, do you want the U.S. to sanction Qatar if Qatar releases IRGC money? I think they were mostly banking with a UAE, but I don't know if they had any funds in Qatar. So I'm thinking that's a possibility. I'm not sure, but this would be my question to you, Armin. Where is this money? Is this U.S.? Is this money U.S. froze or someone else?
So this is frozen assets that the Qatari banks are holding. Went from South Korea to Qatar, and now Qatar is holding them. And Qatar would not be releasing any of those funds without United States permission, even if the Qatari government gives permission to the Qatari banks to release those funds. That's not going to be good enough for the Qatari banks. The Qatari banks would want the United States to write them a written permission to make sure that there are not going to be any consequences to their banks for releasing those funds. So the Qatari banks are not just looking for permission from the Qatari government, they're going to be seeking permission from the US government as well, because they don't want their banks to be targeted by United States in any way or be like bad named or punished in any way. So if any frozen assets gets released from the Qatari banks to the Islamic Republic, it would be with US blessing.
Okay, that makes sense. I would not support such a move at all. That would be my take on that. I mean, I don't think I'd have to elaborate a lot more. Richard said it well. This is supposed to be conditions based and performance based. Their performance have been aggressive and not in line with the MOU.
Okay, but here's my does anybody have a steelman? Because I could provide a steelman. Does anybody have a steelman for this, for President Trump on this? Again, I'm not saying I agree with this, but I could provide you a steelman.
I mean, we could say that we're going to do it and then just not do it. I mean, the second you write the written permission, it's done. Are there other reasons? I don't know. Maybe we're going to let them use the fund to see where it goes. Like sometimes the police will catch someone and release them and then follow their movements, see what they buy, who they talk to. I don't know. But that's as close as I can get to a steelman.
Okay, let me give you a steelman. So the Islamic Republic, obviously, you guys know, is not a monolith. The people, Ghalibaf is genuinely trying his best to give the Americans what they want because he doesn't want to die. So he is motivated, and President Trump and the White House is motivated not to knows that whatever is happening around the Strait of Hormuz is not something that Ghalibaf could completely have control over. There are some limitations to what Ghalibaf could do. And they want to keep support, like as they observing everything that Ghalibaf is doing very effectively, and they can see whether or not they're moving in the direction that US wants or not. So they're not going to be able to share this information publicly. But if the Americans have enough intelligence from inside Iran to know that Ghalibaf is doing what he's supposed to do, they don't want to punish him for things that other parts of the Islamic Republic are responsible for, because then he's not going to be motivated to continue working with the United States and basically be their insider man. And the money that is being released is money that Ghalibaf needs to be able to push back against IRGC. Like what the Americans are asking Ghalibaf to do, like, you know, like, hey, how do I do this? Like, I need to bribe people, I need to buy people, I need to threaten people, I need to get people to be loyal to me, to be on my payroll. Like, I can't just like wave a wand and just push back everybody. You need to put something in my hand. You need to give me some pocket money for me to go around and do all of these things, you know. So you need to, Monkey, remember, I asked you something to do something earlier, and like I can't because I don't have the ability, right? This is what Ghalibaf is like. I can't do what you're asking me to do. So you need to actually give me something. Like, you need to give me some spending money. You need to give me some bribing money. You need to give me some enforcement power, something here and there. So maybe the United States is eager to enable Ghalibaf because he has proven so far to be effective against the supreme leadership and IRGC, or maybe get them to agree with him or move along with his plan because of whatever money he had access to before or whatever leverage he had before. So the Americans are motivated to give him more leverage inside the Islamic Republic because he has proven to move things along the way so far very effectively internally. That might be. What do you think about that, Steelman?
How much money? If it is an extremely large number, then no. If it is a smaller number, then yes. What you're saying does make sense to that he would need some petty cash to do this kind of thing. And the problem with hey, this is just a rogue operative thing. It would show, well, like, do we have to basically keep funding the IRGC to make them not attack? And if this is the only way, the IRGC is not gonna. First of all, like, they did have a lot of money. Like, they have had a lot of money. They still have a lot of money because of the internal sales of oil and a lot of the internal commerce. So it's not like they're broke. So he does have funds that he can access, and we can't play this game where every time someone attacks, oh, that was just a rogue guy. Well, where is that rogue guy? How are we sure that we're going to get that? How are we sure that that rogue guy is not going to rogue out again? It becomes a vicious cycle in that every time they can just use this excuse that was that a rogue guy. It's not like, if you can't control these rogues, we're at a position where the goal is not attainable because you're never going to control them.
Okay, so when you say they have a lot of money, who's they? Because it might not be Ghalibaf, and all of this money is spread across different segments of the Islamic Republic, different industries, different people. So if you say they have a lot of money, the people who have the money might be actually the people who are against Ghalibaf, and Ghalibaf needs to have the upper hand. So it might be, like
that makes sense.
Yeah, it might be IRGC.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know where the money is. That's a great point. And that would lend credence to the I need petty cash to make things happen.
Right. And somebody in our live chat is saying, wasn't that the excuse for Obama? And he or she's saying, so let's fund the terrorists so that the terrorists behave. Well, I wouldn't say so. That was what Obama's plan was. What you're saying, so fund terrorists so that they behave. That was Obama's plan, and it didn't work. Again, I'm not saying this is what's happening, but it could be. I'm saying it's not the plan is not fund them so that they behave. It's fund them to weaken each other, attack each other. So you're not funding them for with the hope that maybe they will become good people and they behave normally, but you could put them against each other. Obama didn't do that. Obama didn't put them against each other. But President Trump might be using Ghalibaf, and I have a lot of good reasons to believe that Ghalibaf is the insider man for the United States inside the Islamic Republic against other segments of the Islamic Republic, right? So that's different from what Obama was doing.
All right. Next to respond on this topic, we have Richard.
Thank you. Nice steel man, Armin, but I hope you wouldn't mind a little rust. First point, your argument assumes that money is actually going to be able to influence the factions that are ordering these attacks to change their behavior, whether it's from Ghalibaf or other factions of the regime. I think the behavior of the factions in terms of ordering these attacks on the ships and whatnot, they've demonstrated pretty clearly they're not motivated by rational things like money. The factions that care about money and self-interest and want self-preservation are the ones Trump is already negotiating with. The only thing the other factions understand is strength and force, and that has to be done with things besides, or at least in addition to money. Second is the whole idea that Trump is negotiating with Ghalibaf has been based on the premise that Ghalibaf can exercise control over these factions. They've actually given Ghalibaf some leeway to demonstrate that he can produce those results. All this is showing Trump is that the factions that are not controlled by Ghalibaf can't be controlled by Ghalibaf. They're wasting their time negotiating with him because he's too weak to control those factions. So there's not going to be the beneficial outcome, even with the internal infighting. I know it might weaken both sides, that's the point, but from Trump's perspective, he would rather prefer the Ghalibaf side dominate so he could actually get parts of his, the deal implemented practically. And third, in terms of what Sketch was saying, the whole "that wasn't me, that was this crazy guy over here" strategy is what the regime's been doing for the past 47 years in terms of using the proxies and avoiding direct responsibility for the attacks. It wouldn't be difficult to just assign blame to rogue factions of the regime the same way they do to Hezbollah, Kesh Teshabi, and their other proxies. So that plays right into their strategy. It rewards their bad behavior, it emboldens them, it makes them think they're getting concessions out of us, and it just encourages more attacks. That's what I would say to Trump if he's listening.
Okay. So let me write these down. Um, so when it comes to Ghalibaf being able to have control or not, when you say that what we're witnessing is that he doesn't have control, I actually see a lot of signs that he is getting more. He is able to get more control than many people assumed he would be able to. Right? Given that he represents a part of the Islamic Republic that historically had very limited power, it's actually surprising how much he has been able to do, which also leads me to think that he must have a lot of US backing for him to be able to do that. If the expectation was for Ghalibaf to be able to stop every single IRGC commander everywhere in Iran, stopping them from shooting a drone or a missile towards a commercial ship in southern Iran, like, well, that is like not even the Americans can do that, let alone Ghalibaf without any, well, like, how is he supposed to do that? So that is like, it's not like a black and white. Like, that is too high of an expectation of Ghalibaf. I think the fact that we saw that before the MOU was signed, the Office of the Supreme Leadership on behalf of Mujtaba came out and blessed the negotiations and the negotiating team. And then we had right before the MOU was signed, we had the IRGC leaders. We had Ghani, we had Musavi, we had Abdullahi come out and support the negotiators, calling them heroes, calling them the fighters in the battlefield of politics, just like the heroes in the battlefield of, like, the actual battlefield. Basically celebrating them showed that almost the most significant parts of the IRGC basically kissed the ring of Ghalibaf, except Vahidi, that we didn't see him, right? That shows that the IRGC was bending the knee to Ghalibaf. And then we also surprisingly saw Agha Miri, which is the spiritual leader of the Paidari camp, come out and endorse the negotiations. This, to me, suggested that there's a lot of force behind Ghalibaf pushing for his dominance. There's a lot of resistance to him, but that suggested that he's actually a lot more successful than a lot of people originally gave him credit for. Usually the camp of the Islamic Republic that has that role, just the pressure release valve, or basically the scapegoat, or the part of the Islamic Republic that whitewashes what the Islamic Republic stands for, the suits part of the Islamic Republic. Usually that's part of the Islamic Republic that has the least amount of power and influence. But under Ghalibaf, now it seems to have like the most, given that the supreme leadership is bending the knee, IRGC was bending the knee, and then we also had the spiritual leader of the Paidari camp bending the knee. That does, if I was the Americans, I would be impressed by that. And again, further on top of that, we don't have a lot of information regarding what else is Ghalibaf is doing for the Americans behind the scenes, right? So when President Trump comes out and says, like, they're giving us everything, and he's not sharing what he means, like, a lot of that could be Ghalibaf basically selling out everybody within the Islamic Republic, and President Trump just not being able to talk about what that is. So just a few drones being shot at commercial ships in the Persian Gulf, in my opinion, is not enough to basically say Ghalibaf doesn't have control, right? With regards to the radicals being a trick that the regime uses just to act like it doesn't have control, and therefore, like, that is a clever strategy that people use during negotiations, by saying, like, look, I'm trying to be flexible with you, but my hands are tied because of these crazy people that I have to appease. That is true, that's a clever negotiating tactic, and the Islamic Republic does use the Paidari camp people to negotiate that way. However, the fighting is real. Like, this is not like a fake infighting. It's not like a 5D chess move by these people. I mean, the 5D chess move is that they're using it to have leverage at the negotiating table by showing that they can't be as flexible as the Americans want them to. But it's not like it's all made up, right? This goes in deep within the body of the Islamic Republic. Like, all of this infighting is real. So it's not like they're making it up, right? They're not having that level of control over everybody is something like, if it's fake, then they are faking it all over the streets, all over the media, and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Islamically minded Iranians are in on it, and they're all acting like this level of butthurt and drama and chaos. And I don't think all of that is fake, right? Given that we already saw all of this happening for years until before we got to this point, right? Like if this was supposed to be a plan, they had to make this plan 20 years ago for a day like this, right? And they had to be acting this out for 20 years, right? Also, I didn't understand the first part of what you said regarding them being rational or not, because based on what I'm seeing, what the Islamic Republic, different segments of the Islamic Republic is doing, I think they're very rational. Like I think people underestimate these people. Their actions look irrational because people don't understand what their goals are. But when it comes to different segments of the Islamic Republic, based on what they need to do for their survival, everybody is playing the most rational game. Like I think the White House is playing the most rational game. The Israelis are playing the most rational, like doing exactly what they were supposed to do based on what they need to achieve. The Iranian people are doing the same thing, and the Islamic Republic, based on what they need to do to survive, they're actually being very rational, like very rational. I understand every single decision that they're making. If you understand how everything works and everything is connected, and what will increase their chances to survive. But I don't know what were you saying regarding them being rational. But can you clarify that point?
I was just saying that basically the argument you make about the beneficial effect of releasing the frozen funds to Khalibaf's influence in the regime assumes that he'll be able to use that money to gain the influence from the Paidari camp. What I wanted to argue as a countermeasure is that the factions that Khalibaf needs to assert control over don't necessarily want anything rational like money. They've demonstrated that they're more committed to ideology, honor, other kinds of nonsense, and the argument assumes that you'll be able to pay them off and to get calm. May not work because of their motivations, and B, at the very least, you're rewarding bad behavior. You're giving them what appears to be a concession in response to their aggression, so you're emboldening them and encouraging further attacks.
So there's different, if you have the money, there's multiple things you could do. First of all, a lot of them are motivated by money. Like we saw mosques and Hosseinias inside Iran that were attacking the MOU, and then something switched, and overnight they came out and defended it, right? There are different segments of the IRGC that are supporting different mosques and different Hosseinias. And once they get the orders from the top down that here's the new narrative, they switch like people, a lot of Iranians make fun of them. They like show what they were, what they were saying, and their speeches were just 1 week, and the week later it switches, right? So you can see that many of them are trying to control the narrative in the streets in Iran based on the orders that they're getting from whoever is giving them the funding and supporting that specific mosque or Hosseinia from the top, like what's their marching order, what is the new narrative that we need to be supporting. It's interesting because sometimes you could see 5 or 6 of them that were saying something, they all switch at the same time to something else, which shows that like when a lot of time you see them and they look like they're so like passionate and zealous about something, and then they become so passionate about a position that is the exact opposite, and they all switch at the same time. It becomes very obvious that they're getting their orders from, and again, there are different segments. So for example, some mosques and Hosseinias get their orders from this part of the IRGC. Some of them get their orders from a different part of the IRGC. Some of them get their orders from Ghalibaf. He has his own network as well. Some people get their orders from the office of the supreme leadership, right? So different mosques are loyal to different segments of the Islamic Republic. We also have mosques and Hosseinias who are not even connected to the government, and they're private and independent. And we saw this Muharram for Ashura, some of them even coming out and doing ritual, like doing processions against the regime. So we saw mosques and Hosseinias, for example, that stopped talking about Hussein and kept on singing stuff that was clearly, obviously about the massacre in early January. So we saw that switch as well. Some in some of the private, not government affiliated mosques and Husseinias, people were coming out, and instead of mourning the death of Hussein, they were mourning the death of the Iranian people in early January. So that's like, so there's a diverse set of religious people with different motivations and different sources of funding. But if you have the money, you deal with different people with different in different ways, right? So with some of these centers, like religious centers, you pay them money and you tell them what to say, and they say it. With some of them, you threaten them, and they will stop saying what they're not supposed to say because they respond better to threat. With some of them, you do a combination of threats and rewards, right? With the people with the people who are extremely, not motivated by this world, and they don't respond to threats as well, there are strategies with that as well. You either work on, instead of directly working on them, you work on the people that they look up to and change their narrative, and they slowly change their narrative accordingly. With the ones that you cannot change at all, you create a fake opposition. So if you have money, you obviously know that you're not going to be able to change everyone to your side. So you create a fake opposition. You build people, mullahs or influencers, who are attacking the MOU and attacking Ghalibaf, who might be funded by Ghalibaf. They're attacking Ghalibaf, but they're funded by Ghalibaf, and you just try to make sure that you gather the most anti-Ghalibaf people under people who are also controlled by Ghalibaf, so that you could actually control it and divert it in a way that wouldn't harm the MOU in a significant way. So you try to capture that audience, right? So it's not just as simple as like, oh, I have money, here's some money, change your opinion. There are many ways to go about controlling and monitoring and diverting the force of the anti-Ghalibaf, anti-MOU people in a direction that would not hurt Ghalibaf's position. And there are people within the Islamic Republic who are experts at that, and they have 47 years of practicing exactly that, and they know what they're doing. And if you have billions of dollars in your pocket, you know exactly what to do to reduce the effectiveness of these types of people when it comes to being threat to Ghalibaf. Right? But if you have the money, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I appreciate the analysis. Thank you.
No worries. Okay.
Speak on this, because I think there was a miscommunication here, because he's saying, oh, the guy launching the missiles isn't a rational actor. Like, there's a confusion between the boots and the streets. That commander is not a Paidari. That's a commander. That's a different kind. Like, he may align with certain segments, certain mosques, but it's not, it wouldn't be correct to think that the Paidaris and the boots are the same people. Am I correct in this?
So yeah, so if somebody is working within the IRGC, like it's a foot soldier, like it's part of the launcher boys, right? So when we say the boots, we're talking about the leader of the IRGC, right? But like a soldier, like a low-ranking soldier that is supposed to go into a rocket launcher and launch a rocket, personally, he might he might be motivated by many different things. Like there's diversity in them, right? Some of them are like just there to collect a paycheck. Some of them are there as part of the IRGC, and they're extremely loyal to the supreme leader and nothing else. Some of them are extremely loyal to their own local spiritual leader at their mosque, right? Some of them are extremely loyal to their military commander. They think that their immediate commander above them is their god, right? And that's the only thing they know. Some of them have no fucking idea what they're doing, and they're just trying to live every day by day, and they just are doing what they're told to do, right? So it's complex, right? There's a Venn diagram that makes them all understand, like, okay, we're Islam, we're for the Islamic Republic, bless the supreme leader, death to America, death to Israel. Those are the basics. Those are the surface level that they're all on the same page on these basics. But when it comes to a deeper understanding of what motivates you and what drives you to do what you do, there's a lot of variety among these people. and I wouldn't be surprised if for many of them, after the surface level of okay, fine, death to America, death to Israel, bless the supreme leader, long live the Islamic Republic. Beyond that, I wouldn't be surprised if like more than 80% of them are mostly motivated by just collecting a stable paycheck.
I understand that. I like it takes a lot to hit that button and launch a bunch of drones. Like you got to be like really on, like either under orders or a really, really like not caring what anybody above you says. This is what I'm doing because I believe it's right. So I do understand that there's some mosques and some commanders that are not necessarily aligned with Ghalibaf. But I just wanted to make that distinction. Like the guy pressing the button doesn't necessarily there's not necessarily a direct line to the Paidawi, to the streets, but there are divisions within the IRGC. Next to respond on this is Shauna.
I just want to, can you guys hear me? Yeah. So I just wanted to ask though, what you guys, or what you specifically, I guess, think about how this makes us look on the world stage as far as America's soft power. Because I feel like this whole wishy-washy whole Trump negotiation strategy or just getting pissed off or whatever he's doing, I have given up trying to analyze. To be honest, I'm just like, I don't know. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But I do feel like it's making America look kind of like reckless and crazy and not stable. And I don't know if the rest of the world powers are just kind of sitting on their hands until the next presidency or kind of what's going on. I feel like it makes us look really weak though, because we were like all big talk, full dick on the table 1 minute, and then the next minute we're like making a deal with the IRGC, which everybody, even though nobody's willing to do anything about it until Trump, everybody agrees that IRGC is a problem. So I don't know. I just don't know what you think about that. I've been worried. No, I don't know if word's the right word, but it's been something that's been on my mind. Like, I feel like since that, it just makes us look bad. I also am still concerned about a relationship with Israel, but I think hopefully we can patch that up, but we'll see. Anyway, any thoughts?
I do think that United States soft power has been hit significantly because of what this looks like. The world's impression of what just happened is that, it's not completely inaccurate that the United States started something without realizing how difficult it is, and now is stuck inside it, and it cannot, and it's basically, can't get out of something it started. But here's the other side of this, right? The United States looked really, really bad after the Vietnam War, right? It was pretty clear to the whole world. That was the whole world's impression, that the world's superpower went against a weak, small country and was defeated, right? Like, most of the world's understanding of United States versus Vietnam is that United States lost that war, right? And many people would have been, would have agreed that, that it looks like United States is not as powerful, that it's going to get weaker and weaker, and this is the beginning of the fall of an empire, and this is basically the Suez Canal moment of United States, in a similar way that it was for the British Empire, right? But look at what happened since then. United States dominance over global economy and its military power and its cultural power only rose since then, and it's now significant. The distance between the power, the military power, the economic power, and the cultural power of United States between the rest of the world since then has only increased, like, exponentially. So yeah, I'm not saying the impression of the world doesn't matter, but I just think that people underestimate how much United States fundamentals are so strong and is so prepared. The United States is so prepared to take advantage of what's about to happen economically, technologically, and politically, that I think that the best of United States is ahead of us. Like, I think right now, people say, oh, United States is a superpower. I think that what United States is right now is nothing compared to what United States is about to become. Like, even with this power right now, I think people are going to look back at these days and they think they're going to look and see like, oh my God, people were impressed by United States back then. Those were the worst moments of United States compared to the United States future. So this might look bad, but, and I'm not saying that it's not important, but honestly, it's insignificant to the foundations of United States and its current position globally, and how much that's going to benefit United States going forward.
I guess, though, it feels like, okay, maybe that could happen, but it could also, it feels like Americans it looks like, from the world stage, from my point of view, it looks like Americans can't stomach the rise of $1 more on gas, and that we will just cave to one of the most evil regimes that has existed in the last 100 years, and we will just cave because we can't stomach $1 more at the gas station.
Okay, that's a feature, not a bug.
Can I speak on this?
Yes, go ahead.
If you are watching the Iran news and you're not watching 40, I think it's 40 something of the Iraqi people connected to Iraq be dragged off to jail, and all their millions that they stole, both from the Iraqis and from the Iranians in the news. If you're not watching, you're watching the Iran news, but you're not watching that America got Lebanon and Israel to sit down and sign a paper together to get rid of Hezbollah. If you're watching the Iran news, but you're not watching that Marco Rubio was just in Syria, like if you're watching just the Iran news, that is a problem. But I don't know that the world stage watches the news the way Americans watch the news. Because Americans are very like one topic. I can't handle 3 topics. I'm just going to see everything that says Iran, and I'm going to ignore it if it says Lebanon. I'm going to ignore it if it says Iraq, because I'm just going to watch the Iran thing, right? Now, that kind of mentality does exist in America, but I don't know that that's the way the world stage works. The world stage would be seeing all these moves happening.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point. Yeah, and there is good things that are happening. I also think that they've kind of solidified that, yes, we're trying to protect our Western Hemisphere, which is mostly what I want. So I guess that's good. That's how it feels. It looks like we are just being, I guess, on a global stage. It just feels like maybe it's just from the Western powers too. I'm not just watching Iran, but I'm watching, like, maybe it's just too much Western media. It just feels like the world sees us as just kind of easily brought to our knees because we can't sacrifice. But
okay,
well, are you seeing that on American news, or are you seeing that on Japan news, on South Korea news? What I mean, if you're only consuming American media and you think that what American media says, how we look at the world stage, like there's a difference there. Like if the question is, how does the world stage see us? Well, you can't look at American news and get that.
No, I probably, though, now that you bring that up, though, I'm thinking you're probably correct that I watch way too much like Western media. So I don't just watch American media, but I probably do have too much of a Western bias if I'm thinking about it, at least the last few days. So that's a fair point.
I want to thank you because it's a good topic.
I do think that based on what I've seen, other world media has that impression as well. But how much does that matter, really? So the rest of the world that is judging America being weak to the Islamic Republic, those very same people enjoy less purchasing power and on average less safety than the Americans, right? So they could sit back and be like, oh, America is weak, while Americans are living better lifestyle and safer lives than they. So how weak is America, given that that's what they can deliver to the American citizens? I mean, do you want to look like you're winning, or do you want to really win? So which one would you choose? Look like you're winning and not really winning, or really winning but not look like you're winning and people bad mouthing you? Like, what matters more? Like, I think the true measure of whether you're winning or not is in the job market, in the stock market, in your inflation, in your purchasing power, and in your safety. That is how you measure whether you're winning, not what other people's perceptions are of your country. Right, Shana?
Of the international news that I do watch, I do see places like Japan, Taiwan, South Korea have a more broader like take on what's happening usually. But I think you were correct in saying that it doesn't matter what they report, only what happens. Where the difference is for primaries. Where that's what makes a difference.
Also, the American citizen saying like, oh, we're going to raise, like, we're going to be so angry and punish the politicians for raising gas prices another $1. That is like, other countries look at that like, oh my God, you're so weak, you care about that. That is a demonstration of strength. The fact that's a luxury, the fact that you're not thinking like, oh no, like we have, are we going to have a jihadi army in our backyard raping our daughter? Like, if the fact that you're not voting based on that, who do I vote for so I don't have a jihadi in my backyard raping my daughter in front of me before they behead me? The fact that your voting behavior is not based on avoiding that, and your voting behavior is based on reducing gas prices by $1, that is not a sign of weakness. That shows that the luxury that you have, that you have to care about that instead of what other people around the world have to care about. That's a demonstration of strength, not weakness.
Oh, I did want to. I see your point, Armin. I will think about it. I did want to point out too, though, that part of why America's doing so much better, like as far as scale, like our width between us and other nations, right? Our strength is also because, at least when it comes to the Western nations, they've also made their own really stupid decisions and made themselves weaker. And we were like, we're not going to do that, which good for us. I'm glad that we are happy to burn dead dinosaurs. I'm super happy about that. But the distance, I suppose, that you were talking about is not just our strength, it's also their weakness, at least when it comes to the Western powers. And so I think we, as Americans, just my little soapbox kind of moment is just to say that we still need to be focused on building our strength, because we can't just compare the distance.
Right. Let me, you know what this reminds me of? You know how like some people see a rich person's life and they try to cope not having that by saying, I bet you he's miserable, right? I bet, let me find some signs, like, oh my God, he has a giant pool, he has a big house, he goes on vacations. I bet you he fights with his wife so much. I bet you, oh my God, I bet you he has such a fucking miserable life. I wouldn't want that life, right? I think like so much hate on United States by other people within other countries is resembling that. They see the strength of the United States, and they get jealous. They see its economy, they see its purchasing power, they see its stability, they see, and they're like, they look at the news, and anything that shows that America might be weak somewhere, they latch onto that and they celebrate that, because they're coping that they're not United States. They're not the United States.
Enos.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's maybe part of it, but I also just think that when it comes to the Western powers, right, or Western Europe, there's also just the fact that I do think there's an elite class in Western Europe specifically that is contemptuous of the fact that these like ragamuffins that they got rid of 200 years ago are now beating them. Like I mean, like if you look at the history, we were their peasants that they wanted to get rid of. We were their excess stock. Like they didn't want to keep us around. The elites only started to come in later. So I also just think that there's an element within like European elite society that does not understand why like these McDonald's eating like unwashed hooligans would be so much more powerful than them. I legitimately think that. So I'm just pointing that out.
All right.
All right. Very special. Next response to this topic. Susanna, glad to hear you.
My God, it's not that special. Well, first of all, Shauna, I agree. I mean, just dealing with the daily contempt of Western European elites, that's just par for the course. You know, that's nothing new. And I think you're right that it is also coupled by the fact that large swaths of Europe do have an active degrowth mentality. So you raise a good point there. But my actual point was, when you're saying, oh, well, they're saying that we look so weak compared to Iran or, you know, standing up to the Islamic Republic, blah, blah, blah. My question is, in comparison to who? Them? They're going to judge us about standing up to the Islamic Republic? Give me a fucking break. Are you fucking kidding me? You're so weak standing up to the Islamic Republic. In comparison to who? You? bitch, you? What have you done? When have you put the bass in your chest, huh? When have you really stood on business? When? I'm waiting. I am waiting for the receipts because, sir, when? I mean, the only people who can really be like, nah, we're standing on business more than you guys, blah, 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 would be Israel. For good reason. They're the only ones who have been like, no, we put the dick on the table. Like, they're the only ones who can like flex on us in that regard. So, you look so weak in compared to the Islamic Republic. Do you want me to pull up the history books? Do you want me to pull up the receipts, the transcript? Because for all the whining, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. So I just find that criticism like very rich. Like, what in comparison to the UK? Like, give me in comparison to Austria? Like, give me a break.
I miss somebody in the chat saying, wow, it's so long since I've heard a decent Susie rant. Yes. Oh my God, I miss that so much.
I mean, she's very humble, but I will say that she is dearly and sorely missed. We would like to hear more rants. You know, you say it's not special. Okay, make it not special. Come on over, talk as much as you want. So that's just an everyday thing. That'd be great. And I would also like to agree that, you know what, surrender is a French word. And right now you can't spell cuck without UK. Okay. So, you know, that's what I would say I'm talking about the governments. The people are good people. But, you know, those governments can't be talking. All right. Next to speak on this topic, Samantha.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to say, you know, it's interesting when you were talking about how, you know, it's weird, like some people might interpret it as weakness that we are so weak we can't handle like higher gas prices, but like you see as a sign of strength that like, you know, we're worried about gas price, that we're so strong, we're worried about gas prices, not like jihadis raping people. It just kind of reminded me, it brought me back to a conversation I had with like my friend who's like from Saudi and very anti-Zionist, and we had this one conversation where he told me how like, you know, what's happening in Gaza is one of the most like horrific acts of human like what Israel's doing in Gaza is one of the most horrific acts of human cruelty and one of the most just like horrific, you know, events of human suffering, what's being done in Gaza. And I'm like, no, it's not. And he told me, he's like, the fact that you don't understand how horrible this is just goes to show that you're so like privileged. You don't understand how horrible like all that pain and suffering and death is. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, no, the fact that you think this is like one of the most horrific things in history shows how privileged you are, that you don't understand how horrible things have been in like other events and how cruel humanity has been, if you think this is like the worst.
Yeah, I do have to say, humanity has been a lot more cruel than many of these examples, but in defense of humanity, humanity also has been very kind. And
No, it hasn't.
yes, it has. Humanity is filled with, okay, Samantha, I know that's your cult brainwashing speaking, but we're living at the best of times, and humanity is getting better and better and better, and people are living more prosperous, more free, more stable lives with access to more food, more medicine, more clean water, lower child morality, and people are being kinder and kinder to each other. And most of human history is people being kind to each other. The violence are rare exceptions. If the violence was the norm, we wouldn't be able to survive. Most of civilization has been a story of cooperation and sympathy and people working with each other and achieving mutual goals and working with each other to help out each other. The violence gets our attention the most because we don't like violence, and it grabs our attention. So when it happens, when the cruelty and the violence justifiably grabs our attention, but if that was the norm, we wouldn't survive. Human nature is a lot more based on care and sympathy and cooperation than it is by motivated a lot more based on that than cruelty and violence. Yeah.
I agree completely, but I think there is some good points that Samantha put on here. That if you think us is the worst thing that's happened ever, you're pretty privileged and you're kind of ignorant about humanity's past. There have been dark times. Some people, when we look at war, there's a miscalculation that when you think these two nations are at war and these horrible things happen, yeah, but that's not a good representation of the amount of population in those two nations that are directly involved in the war, right? So like during the Civil War, there was a small part of the population that was actively in combat and actively affected by it. So when we look at the horrors of the Civil War, or we look at the horrors of some of these wars, we have to understand that there's other places within that nations where people are getting along, they're surviving, they're gathering together. And you have to look at humanity through these tribes. Okay, maybe when this tribe fights that tribe, it's bad. But you have to understand that humanity keeping that tribe together on one side is the humanity that's also keeping the other tribe together. So you have to look at it, okay, when these tribes fight, that friction is bad. But you have to understand that friction is two tribes protecting themselves. You have to understand, well, I mean, for them to be a group, they have to care about each other. That's why they're a group. They might have competing interests, which lead to the friction. But in their nature, they are gathered together with a common goal and understanding and basically, human decency towards each other that leads them to care about the interests of these groups. So humans, as a creature that is a group animal, we care about the group and the well-being of the group. And these groups clash, but the nature is not that humans are evil, it's that humans protect their group. What do you think, Armin? Am I correct in what I'm like trying to tie these things together?
Yeah. I don't want to go into a biology class, but basically our survival dependent on group cooperation. So we are very, very much motivated by making other people happy and being seen as useful in our tribe and being appreciating other people and being appreciated by others. It's a biological need that makes us cooperate with each other. But we're getting a lot off topic, so let's go to the next person.
At this moment, I don't have any new topics or responses on this.
I did put a 1, and Yuval was put a 2 to this topic. So Yuval, you wanted to respond to this? Yes,
You
you.
hear me?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. So, yeah, I didn't want to. Samantha is not here. Susanna is not here, but I do want to respond. The question is not is in comparison to who. The question is, the comparison is with first with what you said you were going to do, and secondly, the question should be, are you weak in the region where you're operating? Because the question people in the Middle East ask themselves is, who should I align with? And if they see that the U.S. and all, if the U.S. appears to be weak or appears to be a bad ally, then that's very bad for the good guys. Even if in comparison to France they're strong, or in comparison to the UK they're strong, that doesn't matter to the Saudi or the Bahraini or the Emirati that says, who should I be aligning with? Who's going to be my better ally here? They know they're not going to be an ally with France. They know they're not going to be an ally with the UK. They have other more important questions they're asking themselves, and this is why the US cannot appear to be weak in their eyes in comparison to what the US itself said it's going to do. That's the comparison that should be made. I'm sorry Susie's not here to hear it, but I still thought that comment should have been made. Thanks.
Okay, I think you contradicted yourself, because you said it's not in comparison to who, it's comparison to what they have to do. But then you said that to make your point, you actually proved that Susie was correct. First of all, strength is always relative. So strength is, even if you compare to what you said, okay, but if other countries could not even, even that could be relative to other countries on how much they do what they say, right? So even if you're comparing what the United States has done compared to what is said, well, that would also be a comparison to how much other countries follow through with what they say. So even that would be a comparison. Also, then the example that you gave.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. What?
See your point.
Oh.
I see the point, but what I meant to say was to say they're not as weak as the UK. They're not as weak as that doesn't mean much in the Middle East, because the Middle Eastern person
does. No, it actually does, because if they want to rely on somebody, if the United States, for example, disappoints them, right? So, for example, let's look at Saudi Arabia, right? So, United States, for example, in President Trump's first term, didn't come into the aid of Saudi Arabia when the Islamic Republic used some drones to bomb Saudi Aramco, right? So this is like, Saudis are looking at this. They're like, we have an agreement with the United States for them to provide security for us around the Persian Gulf. And compared to what they said they would do, they didn't come to our aid. So they try to threaten the United States by getting closer to China. So they went to China, and that did not produce any good results. Like, China was not able to offer 1/1,000,000th of the security services the United States is able to offer. So even with the disappointment to the United States, they came back into the arms of United States, because even when United States doesn't do something that they thought it said it would do, there is nobody else for them to go to, right? There's nobody else for them to choose. So United States gets to sometimes not do what it says it would do, because of the lack of options of a security guarantor in the world other than the United States. So even in that case, you have to compare the United States to other countries. And then if you're like, oh, you said you did this and you didn't, and United States are like, yeah, and what are you going to do about it? Right? And if the answer is like, okay, given that there's nobody like you to provide to me what I want, then maybe I need to become more self-reliant and spend more of my GDP on my own army. The United States their response should be, exactly. And that's what I want you to do, because I want countries that are my allies to be more self-reliant, instead of constantly using me as a security guarantor, like using my free security services. So in fact, not only these countries cannot threaten the United States by going into other countries, like competing armies to the United States, the only other option they have is to spend more of their GDP on their own military, which is exactly what the United States wants them to do. And guess what? When they start spending more of their GDP on their own military, United States will be there to tell them, like, well, would you want to buy some weapons with that GDP money, because I make the best weapons. So by doing that, United States is going to go from providing free security services to actually making profit by forcing these countries to spend more of their GDP on military equipment. And United States was always there to say, like, well, now that you're spending more money, guess what? I have the best weapons, so buy from me.
There's actually a third option there. They can be more reliant. They can choose the US because it's the worst of all possible allies, or they can say, well, the police cannot protect me from the local gangster. I might just submit to the local gangster. And then they will say the US is not resilient enough in fighting Iran. I might start appeasing Iran for my own survival. That's another option. So that's the problem with that's the problem with saying, yeah, maybe we're not the best allies, but we are the best that's around. Then the guy say, okay, you are the best that's around. Okay, in that case, maybe I will just submit to the bully. That's another option that should be considered.
I mean, that's what they have been doing for a long time. And now now you see the result of that, right? The result of that is the bully bombed you. Like that was their strategy. Like, these countries have been trying to appease the Islamic Republic. The problem with the bully is that the bully is unpredictable, and if you appease them, you might get them off your back short term, but they might turn against you at any moment. The bully is unpredictable, and your business model around that region requires a lot more security than hoping that appeasing the bully will just keep them off your back. Because even if you keep them off your back short term, the investors, the tourists, and giant industries that are trying to open their franchises in your neighborhood, they're going to be like, okay, you have a big bad monster there that you are feeding just not to come bite you, but that's not a guarantee enough for me. So people are going to invest in you less. People are going to travel to you less. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. That doesn't work, right? I mean, they might appease the regime.
It's the best guarantee. I said it's the best. It's the least of evils, because Iran is there. Apparently, the regime, the Islamic regime, appears to be there to stay, whereas the US appears to be there for now and go later. So the guy said, okay, this guy smacks me once every 2 years, and this guy comes to my aid, but he's not going to stick around. Right. I might as well appease the bully as much as I can, because, okay, I'll be smacked once in 2 years, but it's better than be smacked every 2 weeks, because the US is not going to be there to help me, because I can't trust it anymore.
Well, getting smacked first of all, they're never going to get smacked every 2 weeks. And getting smacked every 2 years will basically ruin their business model. And United States has a good option for them. They're like, yeah, I'm leaving this area. I don't want to be here all the time. But there is a third option here. The third option is not appeasing, shouldn't be appeasing the bully. The third option should be, like, given how much you suck at your own military, the best alternative in this region is not going into the arms of China or Russia, is Israel. So United States doesn't mind these countries going under the security umbrella of a different country that is not United States, and it's telling them that country is Israel. So given how much you suck at your own defense,
but the US also limits Israel. But the US also is tying Israel's hands. So regrettably, Israel is maybe it's a better ally than the US, but it is a limited ally, because sometimes Trump says, no, I'm going to tell him to stop, and he's going to stop. And as good as ally as Israel can be to the Emirates, it is still tied by the US.
Okay, that's what he says, and I don't like that he says that. But if you look at what's happening, it's the opposite, right? The United States helps Israel with decapitating the Islamic Republic, where the United States is, like we heard so much of like, oh, Israel, stop, don't go to Lebanon, don't attack Lebanon, don't attack Hezbollah. And now the United States itself is in Lebanon. Admiral Cooper is leading the Lebanese army against Hezbollah. So, it's one, and also they keep saying, again, I don't endorse it. I criticize the Trump administration, President Trump, for speaking like that against Israel. I don't like it at all, especially J.D. Vance. None of that language is helpful. But what's actually happening, if you look at what's happening behind the scenes, the United States is pushing forward when it comes integrating its military with Israeli military much, much more than before. So there's a lot that is happening behind the scenes, and Israel has done some amazing things recently, but all of that has been with the United States. The attacks on the Islamic Republic and the weakening of the proxies, that was Israel and United States together combined. And the current peace plan between Lebanon and Israel, either it works, people say it wouldn't because Lebanese army is very weak, or it doesn't. But right now, that peace deal is a win-win for Israel, because the agreement is that if the Lebanese army fails, based on that agreement, Israel still then has the right to go do what it needs to do against Hezbollah with a lot more legitimacy and U.S. backing. And if you read that peace deal, if you read Article 11, it commits the United States as well against Hezbollah, which is amazing. So yeah, we kept on telling, hey, stop. I mean, also the stopping of Israel was a necessary show, at least for the Islamic Republic, because if the Americans are making a lot of progress with Ghalibaf inside Iran, then, and if Ghalibaf needed an MOU that at least pretends to try to hold back Israel, and if the Americans are able to use Ghalibaf and the MOU to internally divide and weaken the Islamic Republic from inside, then at the end of the day, that works for is like that is in the benefit of Israel. You might be putting a pause on attacking Hezbollah, but you're making a lot of progress at weakening the source of funding for Hezbollah. And if again, I'm not saying it would be successful, but if the Americans are successful with this deal that they have come up with between Lebanon and Israel and manage to make the IDF work with a Lebanese army in Hezbollah, then that pause on attacking Hezbollah was not that much of a loss compared to the gain that we're going to get, from this. And also, we have to also understand that while President Trump was saying like, oh, we should Israel stop this, President Trump in all of those months was doing something that many people didn't pay attention to in Iraq, which is the area where the Islamic Republic needs to get resources to Hezbollah. President Trump deserves credit right now for pushing against Nouri al-Maliki becoming the next prime minister of Iraq, right? And many people weren't paying attention for when he was doing that. Over the past few months, he was pushing for that. And that led to Iraq not becoming the proxy of the Islamic Republic, this is the segment I wanted to talk to, but I'll just quickly talk about it quickly here. And basically, we already lost Assad, so that's a block between the Islamic Republic and Lebanon right now. And now with this new Prime Minister al-Zaidi, the Islamic Republic is losing a lot of its influence in Iraq as well, which is going to make it extremely more difficult for the Islamic Republic to continue supporting Hezbollah. So while we put a very short temporary pause on Israel attacking Hezbollah, the United States did so many things in Iran, in Iraq, in Lebanon to continuously weaken Hezbollah while all of that was happening.
I accept all of what you say, but with the problem, the main problem here is a problem of credibility. If you come to your allies in the Middle East and say, guys, I'm going to punch Iran so bad that either they're going to surrender or they're going to die, and at the end they don't surrender the way surrender looks like, and they don't die, then your allies in the region say, can I really trust this guy next time he tells me something? And that matters. That it matters, even though you can show me now how behind the scenes things are happening, etc. The question people ask themselves in the Middle East: next time they're going to tell us they're going to come to our aid and beat this guy up or beat the guy, can we really trust them? Are they going to deliver? And that would matter in the way they behave. Maybe now they don't have a choice because it's the US, but in the long run, damaging your reputation and credibility matters in the decisions of those who are supposed to work with you. But I also accept your points about how beneficial the situation can be, especially when it comes to what's happening in Lebanon, which is indeed good news.
So by the way, you're completely right. It does hurt the credibility. We do have to remember, though, that United States promised under George Bush Sr. promised the Shias that they will back them if they do an uprising against Saddam. They did an uprising. Saddam did a massacre on them, and George Bush Sr. never showed up. Okay, so there was that, and then we had President Trump, in United States as a whole, in Syria, basically promised support for the Kurds, and then they abandoned them. And right now, even till this day, those Kurdish groups over there, they remember that, and they feel very betrayed by United States in abandoning them, even though they said they wouldn't, right? And we have many examples of that in US history, and people still come back to the United States. That's the privilege that's have when you have such a giant economy and such a giant military and the best weapons in the world. There's so many examples of United States saying it would do something and then not doing it because they calculated and they changed their mind. And the world still comes back to the United States because that's what you get to do when you're this big and this powerful. But I'm not saying it doesn't have its cost, but it is the case. Okay, so.
But in Arabic, they say, a hand that you cannot overcome, kiss it and wish for it to break. So now they kiss that hand. But with the way the US behave, everyone wishes, not everyone, but a lot are wishing for it to break. And I don't think that for the long run, that it's good for them. But I can see your point. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read 3 super chats, and then we're going to go to Neil Bunny's comment. So, Fleshy Interloper gave a super chat saying, no funds, Lebanon is doing just fine. Oh, I think this is for keeping the Islamic Republic out of Lebanon. Yeah, exactly. And then we got another super chat from Fleshy Interloper saying, calamari strategy is working. So this is Fleshy Interloper is using the cutting of the tentacles of the Islamic Republic. He coined it as a calamari strategy. Guys, if this picks up and it goes trending, everybody remember that it was Fleshy Interloper that started this. I like it, actually. And then we got another super chat from Danny. Danny Delicious ISR saying, under some presidents, we could barely defend ourselves. Under some presidents, we could barely defend ourselves. I think I don't know about that. I think that the United States is more powerful than even some Americans understand. And I think that the strength of the United States goes beyond who's in the White House. One of the reasons why the United States is very powerful is the limitations of power of different, branches of the government, including the president. And I think the United States has created such a powerful structure that the worst president could do damage to the country, but limited and recoverable damage because of the way that there's the United States structure. I keep saying, because I cover Iran so much, I keep speaking. But the way that the United States has structured its government and its institutions is a way that it keeps growing even with shitty politicians. It's the power of the institutions, right? It doesn't rely on the people. The United States doesn't rely on good politicians. It relies on good values and the power of the institutions that it has. It's deep rooted, and it cannot be. It cannot be undone. All right, so Nail Bunny, right? Monkey is Nail Bunny, right? Nail Bunny time.
That is correct. Nail Bunny had some concerns about when people think that we are like Nazis, but I'm gonna let her explain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's different than that.
Your audio is low. Come closer. Yeah, come closer.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, it's actually, so Samantha put in the chat, the average person is no better than the average Nazi. And everyone was all over her about it. And I actually thought about it, and I agree. And this is why I agree. Is that when the Nazis were put on trial, the most terrifying thing about them is that they were normal. They didn't have horns and a forked tail and weren't breathing fire, and they were like anyone you know. And that was the scariest part about them, is because it showed that some normal person could become this monster. And it made everyone really look at themselves as just, how close are any of us to doing something like what they did? And then, people have done study, like looking at German society, Germans weren't, there's nothing about Germans that would lead you to think that they would ever be swept up in something like that. And I say swept up on purpose. They are the average person, and they were the average Nazi. And I think she's right. If you think about it, it's sort of like, if anyone has seen the movie Broadcast News, and if you haven't, you should. It's one of the best movies ever made. Is that, what do you think the devil is going to look like? Do you think that they're going to be, a devil, and you can tell they're a devil? No, they're going to be nice and helpful. I can't remember. I actually did look up the quote because I can't really say it off the top of my head. But he will be attractive. He'll be nice and helpful. He'll get a job where he influences a great God-fearing nation. He'll never do an evil thing. He'll never deliberately hurt a living thing. He will just bit by little bit lower our standards where they are important, just a tiny little bit. Just coax along, flash over substance, just a tiny little bit. It's a famous speech, amazing speech. But it is that, you're not going to be able to recognize it. You just have to never, ever, ever lower your standards. If you know something is wrong, you have to actually say that's wrong, and you have to have the courage to do it. And I think that's the way that you avoid becoming, a Nazi. And I don't know, everyone can attack me for that, just like they kind of attacked Samantha. But I agree. I see where she's coming from with that. I just wanted to bring it up.
All right. I'd like to respond to this. I thought you were talking more about the leadership. If we're talking about the average regular uniform non-SS, I think that was reached through dehumanization campaigns. There was a lot of dehumanization media towards Jews, a lot of sponsoring I would say rhetoric around conspiratorial things about Jews. We're seeing this now, and this dehumanization of Jews is what led to this. And this is also something that was seen in the Tutsis and the Hutus war. I saw a documentary on it, and they said there was like these massive radio campaigns at first. I mean, there was border trouble for sure, but there was this massive dehumanization campaigns where they would speak about how these people, basically these people aren't human. You can just do whatever because they're evil people. And that dehumanization, when the spark was lit, turned into a very horrible war. So I would agree to that on the average soldier. I would put the SS and the higher echelon in a different category, but I believe normal people, if these dehumanization campaigns towards any race, including and especially because it's literally the topic, the Jews, are allowed to continue, we're going to see more attacks on Jews on the street. We're going to see more attacks on Jewish families, on Jewish events. What happened at that supermarket? It's because of these constant dehumanization campaigns. That's the point I'd like to add to that. And next to respond on this topic, we have, let me see here.
I'd like to respond.
He was agreeing with you, but go on.
Yeah, but you were literally proving my point, is that dehumanization. How do you do that? That should be impossible, right? So that's proving my point. But it sounded like you were disagreeing with me.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't disagreeing with you. He was agreeing with you.
I was supporting it. I was trying to be supportive of your point.
Oh, okay, it sounded like
clear. I agree.
Like, I don't understand. You're proving my point. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
No, what I said is that I was mistaken because when I read it, my mistake was that I was thinking about the higher echelon, the ones that were doing the dehumanization campaigns. Them I see as a different animal, the manipulative evil, because they are the masters of the dehumanization campaign. I was pointing that out, that I do qualify them different, but I agree that the average person that falls into the dehumanization propaganda that goes about is basically average people. I was trying to support your point and trying to show the distinction when we're speaking of average, that there is a distinction there that is important, because people think I'm above it. He said, no, you're not. You listen to the wrong people long enough, you're not above it.
Let's go. Yeah. So we got it. So let's go. I think the next person is Yuval, and then Samantha, and then me. That's what I think.
Thanks. So first of all, thanks for that. First of all, Nermani, I couldn't agree with you more about broadcast news. I was so happy to find someone who loves this movie as much as I'm a must-see movie for many reasons. Secondly, I agree with you that we are all prone to get to where the Nazis got, but some societies are more prone than others. And I suspect that those actually are societies where people believe in the benefit of order. It is the functioning societies or cultures that are actually more prone to become Nazi, because a person has a faith in the state and in the existing order. So when they're being told by a mechanism that they trust that this is what should be done, they're more likely to follow. So some societies are more prone than others. Rwanda is a special case because they have history. I don't want to get into it. I actually happened to be there half a year before the genocide, but it's a very special case. But having said that, even though also not all societies are prone the same, at the end of the day, we all have the capacity, if we're not watchful of ourselves, to get there. And all you need to do is take someone, give them some power over someone else, and see how they behave. And in many cases, this power is could very easily be abused with all kinds of rationalizations.
All right. Next on this topic is Armin.
No, let's go with Samantha, and then Shana. I'll go after Samantha and Shana.
All right, go ahead, Samantha.
Okay, so I mean, I'm the one who said, I think that the average person really is no better than the average Nazi. I think that is normal human behavior to feel like, if you're part of a group that makes you feel like you're morally superior or intellectually superior for being part of this group, to literally support the genocide of any group of people who get in the way of invalidating the narrative that you want to believe is correct and exists and makes you feel good about yourself. If you just look around today, most people today either have convinced themselves that their country is like one of the best countries on the planet or one of the worst countries on the planet. It's because people want to feel like they are part of a superior country and therefore superior because they're part of this superior country, or people want to feel like people want to feel morally superior. And how they go about doing that is they try to like convince themselves that their country is a horrible, evil, morally corrupt, and that they're one of the good ones for speaking out against their country, and they're morally superior.
Samantha, you're cutting in and out. You're cutting a little bit in and out. If you could
one of the
fix
ones who
your
can
internet.
recognize this and speak out against their country, and it is completely
Okay.
normal.
Samantha,
Some
you're
American
Samantha, you're having
behavior
a little
for
bit
the
of
people
audio
who-
problems. Make sure that you stay in one place.
Is this better?
Yes, it
Yeah,
seems
can
like
you-
signal going in and
Yeah.
out.
So, and it is normal human.
Go ahead.
Is it? Does
Go
it work now?
Yes, go on.
Yeah, so it's normal human behavior for the people who, want to feel like they're superior because they're part of a superior country to, if their country commits a genocide, try to hide it and deny it or justify it and even, join it. And it is normal behavior for the people who want to feel morally superior to support the grooming gangs and to want to hide evidence of the grooming gangs and to want to victim shame the victims of the grooming gangs. So yes, this is normal human behavior to either be someone who would support a genocide or someone who would support the grooming gangs.
Okay. Who's next?
Yes, next on this topic, we have Shauna.
Well, I want to point out two quick things. One is Germany just it wasn't just a one-time 20-year propaganda case. There was like 100-year propaganda case on top of like historical Christian anti-Semitism. So when it comes to that, there are unique things about Germany that I don't disagree with Yuvi's point about order and other things like that. I think that's all true, but I also think that if you go into the history, it's a little bit more complicated. The other thing I would also just like to push back on Samantha a little bit. I don't think it's just superiority. I think that's only one element, and I would actually like to case in point that to the Jewish supremacists in Israel, the ultra-Orthodox, the minority of the minority of the minority, they may be a problematic element within Israeli society, but they're only violent if you kind of try to stop them from doing what they want to do. They aren't going out and attacking other people. And these are people who like believe that not in the afterlife, but when the Messiah comes, everybody's going to be happy being a slave. I mean, there's like individual Jews that believe that. I'm not saying that speaks for most Orthodox Jews. I don't think it does, but there is this minority group that are Jewish supremacists, and they're not going out and advocating for like genocide or anything like that. So even within a superiority element, even within the superiority element, I think that there's levels of that. And also another quick thing about Germany is not everybody knew what was going on. So there's that element as well. So we don't actually have a full understanding of what people would have tolerated because some elements people were not aware of until much later. So those are my only tiny points, so slight pushback, and just my final point.
Well, I don't think you really pushed back. I think you added nuance to what Samantha was saying. I think everyone has pretty much added to it. I think next to respond would be Armin and then Nail Bunny, or would you like to close it out?
No, I'll go next. Okay. So first of all, I think we're missing a lot of context here. First of all, even in Germany, what the Nazis were doing when they were killing Jews and Gypsies and other people, if you look at the Nazis' own documents, they were having a problem with how to kill the Jews and all the other people because their soldiers were having psychological problems following that orders, killing everybody, right? So even with the German Nazi soldiers, they started, they were shooting them. It was becoming very difficult for the soldiers to kill that many people. They were blowing it up, and they were having the whole point of the gas chambers was because the Nazis were trying to find a way for the people who are killing the Jews to not have to see them. So I'm just saying, like, look, this is the worst of humanity, the worst of humanity. And even in the worst case of humanity, they had to find a way to make it easier for them to kill people by separating the people who had to kill people from the people that they were killing, so they don't have to see them. So you can see there is a natural, still, even in the worst cases, there's a natural biological desire not to harm people. The point of the gas chamber is for them to go in a place that you don't see them, and then release the gas on them, and them dying without anybody seeing that they're dying. And we talk about Germans being Nazis. The vast majority of Germany had no fucking idea about the Holocaust. They had no fucking idea. It was so horrible that the people who were doing what they were doing in the concentration camps, they were hiding it from their own fucking wives that were living in their own city. Like, they weren't, like, they knew what they were doing was so evil that they couldn't let, like, even the wives of the generals that were loyal completely to the Nazi party, they didn't want, their husbands wouldn't tell them what they're doing. They didn't want them to know. Even Germans were shocked. The Nazi Germans were shocked, many of them, regarding what happened after the fall of Nazi Germany, regarding what the fuck is this, right? Again, I'm not saying that these people were good people, but I'm just saying, even in the worst example of what humanity is, there is a limitation to cruelty and what people are comfortable with doing. Also, one thing else that we're missing here is that we're talking about, it's easy to get people in a condition where they accept doing bad things and being evil, right? It's also easy the other way around. Okay, when it comes to, yes, if I am born in an environment where it's about killing and being brutal and being violent as a child, and things are normalized, and killing people and being cruel to people is being normalized, or even as an adult, if I get exposed by authority that is normalizing certain level of cruelty, it's very easy to get people to accept doing evil things. There's a limitation to it. But it is easy to get people to support evil behavior and doing, like, justify acts of violence that is not justified, right? They shouldn't be justified. But we're like, oh, look, everybody could be as bad as this or that. But why don't we look at the other way around? It's also easy to get people to be kind and sympathetic to each other. Like, with everybody keeps pointing at studies like, if you just do this and this and this, people would press a button and they would be willing to torture people to fucking death. Yeah, okay. It's actually easier to do the other way around. If it's easy to make people do cruel things, it's easier to make people do kind things. It's easier to make people do kind things. It's easier if you get people in an environment where we're helping people, we're helping the homeless, we're helping, like, getting people in a campaign to buy glasses for children in African villages that can't see the board, and that's why they're behind in education, funding like a well in somewhere that people don't have access to water. It's easier to motivate people to get to do those things. So if you want to be pessimistic, and if you are sad, and if you are horrified by certain acts, and you just want to wash your hands off of trying to make the world a better place by saying everything is shit and everybody is evil, that's your own problem. Don't try to convince other people that people are naturally evil. People are not naturally evil. People are naturally good. Every time, if it's easy to make people evil, do evil things with the proper conditioning, it's easier to make people do good things with the proper conditioning. People are more motivated by sympathy. People are more motivated by cooperation. People are more motivated by being responsible for making other people smile than they're motivated by making other people cry. It is part of our DNA. We are the most social animals out there. We survive by cooperating. Homo sapiens are animals that are social. You keep saying they're tribal as if it's a bad thing. The tribal part of us makes us cooperate with each other, makes us work with each other, make us want to be appreciated by others, to do things by our tribe to be seen as useful. We literally survived starvation because we work with each other. We're extremely motivated to work with each other and cooperate with each other and please each other. Then they have this comment regarding being superior, wanting to be superior, the desire to show that we're superior. There's nothing wrong with wanting and perceiving superiority. It's literally how we compete and how we find ways to be useful. A sense of superiority is not a bad thing. Just because fucking Nazis started killing other people because they saw them as inferior, it doesn't mean that the desire and the perception that you're superior is always necessarily a bad thing. It's part of our nature to be competitive and want to win against other people. It motivates us to achieve more. It keeps us moving. Saying like, oh, people think like their country is the most superior country. What's wrong with that? If you like, it's basically like, well, not every country could be superior to other. Yeah, in the same way that you think your mom is better than all other moms. Obviously, not all the people who think their mom is better than all other moms. That cannot be true for everyone. Okay, it's natural to want to think that your country is, and maybe it is superior for you. Okay, if I say my mom is the best mom in the world, people are like, well, not all moms could be the best moms in the world. Okay, my mom is the best mom in the world from my perspective. From my perspective, it's a subjective perspective. So if you're Iranian and you think Iran is the best country in the world, and if you're American and you think the United States is the best country in the world, and if you're Israeli and you think Israel is the best country in the world, you are all right. You're correct. It's for you. Okay, there's no objective measure of what country is superior. As an Israeli, Israel is the best country for you. As an Israeli, you see it as the best country in the world. And that's completely normal and natural and healthy. In fact, that gives you a desire to keep rooting for your team. It's a healthy way. Not just because some motherfuckers went and tried to erase everybody that is inferior doesn't mean a sense of superiority is the wrong thing to do. It's not something that we need to eliminate. It motivates us to try to keep it's teamwork, it's competition. It's like sports. Countries competing with each other. You don't have to, just because you're trying to be better compared to other countries, that doesn't mean that you want to annihilate them. Everything we do beyond achieving our basic needs is for a sense of superiority to other people. For our team to be superior, for our family to be superior, for our country to be superior, for me as an individual to be superior. Like beyond your basic biological needs, everything else you do is with the intention to climb up, to win the social game, to be perceived as better, more useful, appreciated by more people, be seen as useful and contributing. It's the status games. It's always the status games. And it's that motivation is responsible for everything growing, for civilization, for medicine, for science, for technology, for the reduction in poverty, for reduction in, like, all this has motivated us to achieve more. And that motivation is the engine, is the fuel in the engine of society. So why would we want to get rid of that desire for superiority? It's our main drive. It's the main human drive to be recognized in their own tribe by other members of their tribe as worthy. And it keeps us together, and it keeps us working with each other. And there's nothing wrong with it. Anyway, let's go to the next person. I keep repeating. I'm repeating myself now.
I mean, there are pretty good points in there. I think I agree with all of them. Next to reply on this topic, we have Bunny.
Yeah, it's really nail bunny. The only reason it's 2 words is because the app wouldn't let me put it as 1 word. So
I'm sorry.
yeah, all good points, Armin. One correction though, and it's really horrible, but I should correct it because it's the truth. But the reason they were using the gas chambers was really so that they could efficiently kill more people. It wasn't about hiding.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
It was actually 2 reasons. If you read their documents, they were complaining about 2 things. Like the Nazis documented everything. They were measuring the cost efficiency, but there were also complaints regarding the effect it has on the soldiers. So both of them were both of them were recorded. Yeah.
I know that the soldiers had to basically get drunk every night to just face the day of what they were doing. So there is that. So yeah, that does add up to what you just said. Okay, I get it. So I just wanted to point out that the grooming gangs, it's a bit different in the fact that they were using Islam and the fact that they are like the people of Islam or whatever, and the superiority of being that to justify what they were doing. It was so that they could treat these girls as the filth that they are because they're not Muslim. So they were doing that. That was the superiority of I'm superior because I'm Muslim, and so that means I get to do this. So that is, that was the justification. Now, although I 100% agree that cooperation is great and societies are great, and I don't think there's anything wrong with loving your country and being nationalistic and loving what the things it does, just as I think that you can criticize your country if you disagree with the things it does. So tribalism, the word tribalism, is when you believe in your tribe so much that, and you believe that it can do no wrong. So you never question what your tribe does. So that's the problem with when they use the word tribalism. That's the negativity of tribalism, is that you are unquestioning about your tribe. And that's the problem with it. And that leads you down to, and it can lead you down to doing some very bad things, as we've seen throughout history.
So I think the word tribalism, when people usually talk about it, they are talking about what you're talking about, and that's obviously not good. Okay. But when I guess I use the word tribalism in a way that it goes back to, I don't know, maybe we should have a different word, because humans have evolutionarily been successful in tribes, and that what you're saying is not what I'm referring to, right? So
we're social animals.
I know, but they're social people with the framework of a tribe, right? So before, like, this is like most of our history we weren't civilized. Like, civilization is 10,000 years old. We have been walking on this earth for like 300,000 years, right? And for most of that time, we were basically, it was us against nature. And other animals had so many different things going for them. Our main thing that made us survive was our tribe. Like, the reason why we're so motivated by shame and approval and appreciation, is because your tribe rejecting you literally killed you, right? So your tribe not abandoning you or casting you out was basically a death sentence, right? So working within a tribe and being approved by the tribe and cooperating with the tribe, and the tribe recognize you and a valuable member of the tribe, was the difference between life and death. And that shows itself in our DNA. So I'm not saying that, tribalism in the way that people usually use it, it means like you're blind, you have blind faith in everything that your tribe does and is the enemy of all other tribes. Yeah, obviously that's harmful, and that's what people usually mean. Exactly what you said. That's what people mean by tribalism, right? But when I'm saying tribalism, I'm talking about that very biological desire that we have to be accepted in our in-group and be seen as valuable members of it. And there's no getting rid of that. That's in our DNA, right? So maybe we should have a different name for what I'm talking about. You're right. Maybe we should call it social, being we're social animals. Maybe that has a more positive, because tribalism is seen as a negative word. But the reason why I call it tribalism is because the framework has always been a tribe. So I mean, that's the same desire that makes you want your team to win. In soccer, for example, you don't want to annihilate the other team or kill them. You want them to lose, and you want your team to win. And you don't see them as enemies. You don't hate them, but you want your team to win, and that's healthy. It needs to be expressed, right?
I agree. I just thought of I can't remember where I heard this, and I heard it very recently. There's an African saying, I don't know which country, that I think it's something like, if you're rejected by the village, then you will burn the village down to feel its warmth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Next to respond on this topic, we have Yuval.
So two things. First of all, Armin, about it's hard for us to get to what the Nazis did, and that's why they needed to sterilize the procedure, so they wanted to confront it. Well, unfortunately, we have an example to falsify that, because in Rwanda, it happened with machetes in front of people's eyes all the time, and they didn't feel any need to sterilize it or to distance it from what they're doing. And everyone knew, their wives, everyone knew why, because it was on the radio. The radio would tell them, go to this and this address, because there's still some Tutsis hiding there. And people would take their machetes and would go there and kill them. So I'm not sure that we do need, I'm not sure we always have this need to distance ourselves from those horrible things that we do. Secondly, about people are more prone to do good than bad. There is not that much separation, because in the eyes of the Nazi, pushing all those poor Jews and Gypsies to where they pushed them, he was doing good. He was seeing in his eyes not them. He was seeing in his eyes smiling and prosperous German children and other European children. In his eyes, he was on his way to do something really, really good. It was just this little obstacle, this little dirty work that needed to be done to reach that good. It's not like someone told him, oh, I'm going to convince you to do something bad. No, they told him, you're going to do something very, very good. You're going to do something very, very good. It's a dirty work, but it's something very good, because the end goal is going to be very, very good. That's the thing. You can persuade someone to do something very bad by making it look like actually it is good. These are the 2 points I wanted to make.
Okay, so with regards to your first point, that doesn't negate my point that people in Germany, that was part of the Nazi document. So I need to look at more what happened in Rwanda. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, right? But what I'm saying is that, do you agree? But that doesn't negate my point with regards to the difficulty of the German soldiers and the fact that they had to, I don't know, get drunk, or that they were having psychological problems, killing that many people over and over again. That did happen, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I agree that it happened, but I'm saying some of us have more shells to peel before we get to the evil core, and some of us have fewer shells to peel. But we can all reach this horrible potential of ours. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but we also have the potential to reach. I think it's easier. Does that negate my point that it's actually easier to reach, the better angels of our nature, like the better side of us, like that is easily accessible as well?
To be honest, the only way for me to answer that is based on my personal observation of people, and I saw both things to the same degree, and I also saw people that do good things so they can justify to themselves why they are doing bad things in other fields. So yeah, you go to the RSAP, you adopt a dog just so that you can feel better about yourself after you were an asshole to someone, right? So it's far more complex than that. I think we have both potentials, and they're mixed in such a way that it's very easy to tell whether we're more prone to do the first or the second.
Okay, so what I'm seeing is in Rwanda, for example, there were countless of ordinary Hutus chose to risk their lives, their families, and their own safety to hide, protect, and save Tutsi neighbors. They did this with no expectation of a reward, acting purely out of basic human empathy and refusal to participate in cruelty. So I don't know what the numbers are, but there was also a lot of
the numbers are horrific, because the Rwandan G word took only 3 months, and if you will multiply the number of the Rwandan G word, if you take those 3 months and multiply them to make it 6 years, like the Second World War, they would exceed what the Nazis did by far.
Okay, I want to say something that I don't know if it's okay to say, so I'm going to think about saying that, but I'm not going to say it out loud right now. Let me see. So here's the thing. Like there has been reports on psychological, mental wreckage on the people who committed the crimes as well, right? So, for example, you talk about Rwanda, okay, but that is horrible, and we use it as an example to show what humans are capable of, what kind of evil people are capable of. But here's the thing: why do we keep going to these examples? Because they don't, most of the time they're not happening, right? Like they become very unique parts of our history, right? Like the Holocaust, the Rwandan genocide, the Armenian genocides. There's snapshots in history that went on for months or years, but they are snapshots, right? They're not continuous. They're examples of things going really, really wrong. Like that's not the natural way that Rwanda is most of the time. That is one very dark chapter in Rwanda history, for example, but it's not most of Rwanda's history. So I think the fact that this horrifies us shows that they're rare, and there are exceptional rare moments of our history. They're not the norm in our history. They're exceptional rare moments of our history. And the fact that they're exceptional rare moments of our history shows that this is not normal to our nature.
I respond to that. Do we have time for me to respond?
Yeah, respond.
The reason I don't think the reason they're rare is a testament to our good nature. The reason they're rare is maybe a testament to the way where we normally reach an equilibrium, where it's not worth anyone's while to get there. So normally, when there is an equilibrium, we just don't get to the point where you can be that. Russia is strong enough for Germany to invade it, and the Tutsis are strong enough from the Hutu to wage full-scale war, etc. And that's why you don't see it. I think not necessarily because of our good nature, but I would acknowledge we also have good nature. They both of them play a part. But the reason these are rare, to my mind, are more has to do with an equilibrium and stable situations where people, it's not worth their while to deviate to those dark places.
Yeah, this is very interesting because I think that equilibrium is reached not because people are doing calculation, a cost benefit analysis, because we suck at that. I think the equilibrium is reached through an evolutionary, like that our desires. So this equilibrium is reached because based on a 300,000 year process of evolution, not because we suck individually. We're suck as doing the cost benefit analysis for us to hate each other that much and do a cost benefit analysis and not kill each other just because we are motivated of reaching an equilibrium. We do reach that equilibrium because our evolutionary biology has given us the right desires that even if we just without calculation work in accordance to those desires, we reach those equilibriums. Those equilibriums are based on our good nature, like based on our desire to cooperate and based on our desires not to constantly be violent against each other. Even if we have temporary cases of violence and cruelty, we get immediately tired of it because we cannot psychologically bear being in that situation all the time. So this is not, in my opinion, this is not like, for example, the Houthis 5D chess move that I want to kill these motherfuckers, but long term, this is not a good strategy. So let me not do this. This is an exhaustion from violence and cruelty that makes you stop, and the comfort in cooperation and people being it's just it requires less mental energy to be in that. It's more short term. It's not long term planning. It's short term planning. When society gets that violent and that cruel, eventually it gets exhausted. And now that I'm looking at it, it was also true with Rwanda. Many of the people who were doing those crimes suffered from severe nightmare flashbacks of their victims and crippling panic attacks. They had moral injury. The intense guilt of violating their own basic humanity caused deep depression, alcoholism, and total breakdown of self-identity by a lot of these people in Rwanda. And the former militia members frequently reported physical illness and phantom sensations like the constant smell of blood. This to me shows that was not natural. This to me shows that in Rwanda, these people, this is not the natural way for humans to be. And that's why it's rare, not because of a long-term planning for what's in our best interest of our society, but short-term giving into your desires of not dealing with that much cruelty and violence all the time.
Just say that I think it's a mix of both good and bad. We have the bad side and the good side. They're mixed. And I'd leave it at that because I think it's far more complicated topic to try and dismantle.
I completely agree that we have the innate desire to be violent and cruel. I just think that people should not forget our innate desire to be kind to each other. And I think that is stronger. And I think it's more complicated. And I think it's very complicated. And I think they both exist. But I think that people who only focus on our innate desire to be violent and cruel to each other are doing us a disservice. And it encourages abandonment. I think one way to help humanity is to encourage love for humanity. Like, this is such a self-fulfilling prophecy where people saying like humans are bad and they're cruel and they're violent. I think that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you lose your faith in humanity, then you think humanity doesn't deserve helping. And if people don't want to help humanity, then we are going to be more cruel. We are going to be more violent against each other. I think if you want the best in humanity, you have to promote love for humanity. by constantly saying that we're all evil, you're encouraging hate for humanity, and by encouraging hate for humanity, you will have more hate for humanity, and you will have more cruelty, and you will have more violence. But by seeing the best in us, you will also encourage the best in us. Anyways,
All right. I think this was a great discussion. I appreciate Sam and Samantha and Nail Bunny for bringing up this discussion. And I think if we have any super chats left, we would read them and then close out. The conversation continues here, though, so please join the school. There should be a QR code somewhere out there. And with that, go ahead, Armin.
Yes, first of all, I want to appreciate Samantha. This is a great topic, even though I disagree with her. I think it was a very important topic for us to discuss, and I appreciate her bringing it up. I really enjoyed talking about it. And then I want to say BT June just gave us a super chat saying, burning down the village to feel its warmth. This quote describes leftists feeling outcast, attaching to victims, tearing down. Yes, exactly. Okay, thank you, BT June. Yeah, I think like a lot of leftists see the worst in humanity, and I know BT June might be joking a little bit, but I think a lot of leftist revolutionary fetish for burning everything to the ground is because they see the worst in humanity, and they're like, fuck it, let's just fuck everything up because people are shit. So I think there's some truth to that. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording, and guys, in half an hour I will have a live stream with Ali. So either make sure you're subscribed to Liberty Politics and hit the bell notification, so when we start, you don't miss that, or also come to the discussion group, join this group call, because people are going to continue the conversation here after I'm gone. So with that, I'll see you guys pretty soon. And until then, I'm Israel Chai, Slava Ukrainia, Cuba Libre, Long live America, Javid Shah, Payende Iran. Mwah.
Iran.